A magician never begins by showing you the trick. He begins by directing your attention somewhere else. While you're focused on one hand, the other is doing the real work. By the time the illusion is over, you don't question what happened, you question yourself. Narcissists operate in a similar way. They rarely control people through force. Instead, they control perception. They manipulate emotions, distort reality, and slowly reshape the way others think, feel, and see themselves. And the most dangerous part is that, in the beginning, their behavior often looks like confidence, charm, or even love. But behind the illusion are psychological tactics designed to gain power and maintain control. The question is, can you recognize the trick before it changes the way you see yourself? When people hear the word narcissist, they often imagine someone who is arrogant, selfish, and obsessed with attention. But narcissism is far more complicated than that. Many narcissists are charming. They're charismatic. They're persuasive. They know exactly what to say and exactly how to make people feel special. At first, being around them can feel exciting. You feel understood. You feel valued. You feel seen. But over time, something begins to change. Conversations become competitions. Affection becomes conditional. And little by little, you start questioning your own reality. Because narcissists don't simply seek admiration. They seek control. And they often achieve that control through a set of psychological tactics that most people don't recognize until it's too late. Today, we're going to explore 5 of the most common psychological tricks narcissists use and why they work. The first trick is gaslighting. Imagine remembering a conversation perfectly, only to have someone insist that it never happened. You bring up something they said, and they respond. You're imagining things. That never happened. You're too sensitive. At first, you defend yourself. But after hearing the same thing over and over again, doubt begins to creep in. Maybe I remembered it wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe the problem is me. That's the true goal of gaslighting. It's not simply to win an argument. It's to make you question your own reality. Psychologists have long understood that human memory isn't perfect. Narcissists exploit that weakness. The more confused you become, the more dependent you become on their version of events. And once someone controls your perception of reality, they gain enormous power over your decisions. The second trick is love bombing. Imagine meeting someone who seems too good to be true. They shower you with compliments. They constantly text you. They tell you that you're different from everyone they've ever met. Everything feels intense. Everything feels magical. But the intensity isn't always genuine intimacy. Often, it's strategy. Love bombing creates emotional dependence. The human brain releases dopamine when it receives affection, attention, and validation. Narcissists understand this instinctively. By overwhelming someone with affection at the beginning, they create an emotional high. And once that bond is formed, the affection begins to disappear. Suddenly, the person who once made you feel extraordinary becomes distant and cold. And without realizing it, you start chasing the version of them that existed in the beginning. The tragedy is that the person you're chasing may never have existed at all. The third trick is playing the victim. No matter what happens, the narcissist is always the one who has been wronged. If they hurt someone, they'll explain why they had no choice. If they lie, they'll blame their circumstances. If you confront them, they'll somehow turn the conversation into a story about their own suffering. Suddenly, you're no longer discussing their behavior. You're comforting them instead. This tactic works because human beings are naturally empathetic. Most people don't like seeing others in pain. The fourth trick is intermittent affection. One day, the narcissist treats you like the most important person in the world. The next day, they become distant, cold, or unavailable. The affection comes and goes without warning. And strangely, that inconsistency often makes the bond even stronger. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when the reward will come, so you keep hoping that the next moment will bring the connection you once felt. Narcissists create emotional uncertainty. They keep people trapped between hope and disappointment. The victim begins to focus less on the pain and more on recapturing the brief moments of affection. And the more unpredictable the relationship becomes, the harder it is to walk away. Because human beings are wired to chase rewards that feel just out of reach. The fifth trick is isolation. Control becomes much easier when someone has nowhere else to turn. At first, the narcissist may criticize your friends. They may question your family's intentions. They may suggest that nobody understands you the way they do. The comments seem harmless at first, but slowly, your world becomes smaller. You spend less time with the people who care about you. You stop sharing your struggles. You begin to rely more and more on the narcissist for validation, advice, and emotional support. Isolation isn't always physical. Sometimes it's psychological. The goal is to make you believe that your connection with them is the only one that truly matters. And once someone becomes your entire world, their influence over you becomes almost limitless. Why do these tricks work so well? Because they exploit some of the deepest parts of human psychology. Our need for connection, our desire to be understood, our fear of rejection, our tendency to trust people who make us feel special. Narcissists don't create these emotions. They simply learn how to manipulate them. That's why intelligent, kind, and emotionally aware people can still fall into these traps. Manipulation isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're human. And the more you understand these psychological patterns, the harder it becomes for others to use them against you. Why do these tricks work so well? Because they exploit some of the deepest parts of human psychology. Our need for connection, our desire to be understood, our fear of rejection, our tendency to trust people who make us feel special. Narcissists don't create these emotions. They simply learn how to manipulate them. That's why intelligent, kind, and emotionally aware people can still fall into these traps. Manipulation isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're human. And the more you understand these psychological patterns, the harder it becomes for others to use them against you. Remember the magician from the beginning of this story. The secret wasn't that he had supernatural powers. The secret was that he knew where people were looking. Narcissists use the same principle. While you're focused on their charm, they manipulate your emotions. While you're focused on their words, they reshape your reality. And while you're trying to understand them, you slowly lose sight of yourself. The greatest defense against manipulation isn't suspicion. It's awareness. Because the moment you recognize the trick, the illusion begins to disappear. The only question is, how many of these tricks have you mistaken for love? It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you. Until next time, stay safe, and thank you very much for watching.